to restrain our government
from intervening overtly and covertly in the internal affairs
of other nations,
to end the arms race,
to reduce and eventually eliminate nuclear weapons,
to seek justice for veterans and victims of war,
to abolish war as an instrument of national policy.
To achieve these goals, members of Veterans for Peace pledge to use nonviolent means
and to maintain an organization that is both democratic and open,
with the understanding that all members are trusted to act in the best interests of the group
for the larger purpose of world peace.
red leather, yellow leather.
Let's go scrolling. Here we go. Ready, get set, action.
We will use our anger at injustice as a positive, non-violent force for change.
We will approach every encounter with fellow members and the public with positivity and mindfulness.
And with the assumption that concerns raised are coming from a positive place.
and present a learning opportunity.
Our attitude,
as conveyed through our words,
symbols, and actions,
will be one of openness, friendliness,
and respect towards all people we encounter.
All members have an important role to play in Veterans for Peace.
regardless of previous military rank, branch, or combat experience.
We will respect one another as equal parts of a whole.
We will not assault verbally, in person, or online anyone,
To include fellow members and those who oppose or disagree with us.
Even if they assault us.
This does not preclude a member's right
To defend themselves
Against a physical attack.
In keeping with our commitment to achieving our goals through nonviolent means,
There is an expectation that members will not carry weapons with them.
to Veterans for Peace events,
Or while representing Veterans for Peace.
regardless of the laws in their location.
We will follow the directions of designated coordinators.
Hey, and welcome to Gamers for Peace, an initiative of Veterans for Peace. We're a group of anti-war veterans and allies who are speaking out against the military recruitment to kids in gaming and streaming. This is our Mental Health Monday stream where we discuss topics related to veterans' mental health and substance use. We work to create an inclusive gaming and streaming environment, and we have open discussions about the realities of military recruiting, service, and war. My name's Phoenix. I'm an Army vet. Served as an intel analyst and did one tour in Afghanistan in 2008. So I'm joined by the usual crew, but I'll allow everybody to go around and say who's here today.
Hey, sincerely V. Just here to play. Help. Health. Gamers for Peace. Member, United States Marine Corps vet. Veteran for Peace. That's my entire introduction.
Yeah, hi everyone, Poussin Mushroom here. 7 years United States Army veteran, 2 deployments. I'm actually diagnosed with this, so I'm not a doctor, but as usual, I guess you'd say I'm the human guinea pig, so I'm here to talk about what it's like to live with it and, like things I like to do, like coping mechanisms and just letting you know more from like a first person's perspective. And I'm also here to play the game. I never played this before, should be fun. And then I'll pass it off to Haas Delgado.
Hey, I'm Haas. Ally here at Veterans for Peace. Didn't serve, but happy to help out our fellow crew here in the Veterans for Peace community. I'm a little bit more experienced here with Smite. Hoping to help lead these folks along for tonight and get them introduced to the game.
Yeah, I'm excited because Smite has a pretty competitive circuit that I didn't realize. So that'll be interesting to see how we do. But I know usually they're 5-man teams, so this is just kind of us BSing around today. Yeah, so I haven't played Smite, and I think I played it like once, like 4 or 5 years ago. So this will be interesting. We're just going to play some co-op mode, so we're not going to go into regular games and kind of mess it up for other people. So, but yeah, let's talk about a little bit about tonight's topic before we get started. So today I kind of wanted to talk about or start a series. So this is going to be a little bit of a new series, though we're hoping to have a guest come back for our substance abuse series later on. But I wanted to start a new series on PTSD because I think like there's going to be a lot of different episodes about this, and today is just going to kind of be that very general introduction to PTSD. And we'll talk about maybe how it's diagnosed and what are some of the symptoms people experience and some of the prevalence of it and things like that, just to kind of get our feet wet into the topic so we kind of have a basis of knowledge when we do future episodes about PTSD. Yeah, I didn't notice the bearded dragon.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep, he decided to nuzzle up inside my neck.
What's their name?
This is Argy.
Argy?
Short for Argy, yeah. Short for Argynvost. It's the dragon from Curse of Strahd.
You know how I know you're a nerd?
Yep.
You know how I know I appreciate you?
Yep.
Yeah. So let's jump into this topic a little bit before we kind of get started about the game. So most of us are vets here, but I'm sure everybody has heard of PTSD at some point in their life. So I'd like to hear like from y'all, what are some of your what is the most common myth you've heard about PTSD? So what's like that thing that you hear, maybe like it might even be like a cliche. But what's that most common myth?
I would like to dispel the myth that having PTSD makes you weak or less in any way, shape, or form,
Right.
or speaks to cowardice or any of that. Doesn't.
Nope.
PTSD has nothing to do with any.
Right.
Does not mean
Another one I notice is a lot of people seem to think like the only people who get it are combat veterans. And while that's a large population, as I'm sure we'll discuss tonight, that is absolutely false. It can happen to anybody who goes
Yep.
through a traumatic event, whether it be like a car accident or something.
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
Yeah. Poisson's was my myth. Yeah. I think those are the two really big myths that I know coming from the
Mhm.
civilian sector, especially like the Hollywood combat vet that like hears a car honk on the street or something like that, which I mean is a completely valid thing. If that is what upsets your PTSD, that's
Right.
the only exposure we really get from it from the civilian side, and kind of that overshadows the legitimate reasons people have it from non-combat reasons.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's this like Hollywood glorification of it, almost this romanticizing of PTSD that I personally I don't like at all. Like, it just I don't know. It legitimately like makes me queasy and sick when I think about like what was that one movie? I know I've mentioned it before on stream, like the Hurt Locker.
Yeah.
Yep.
About the
With the
DOD
EOD guy, Jeremy Renner. Yep.
Yep, I hated that movie. Hated it because it was just like this. This guy was an EOD specialist in part because he was still coping with his PTSD. Like it I didn't like that movie at all. It really threw me back. Just because I feel like
another
it's like
thing. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say another thing about that movie I didn't like, especially with the Hurt Locker, is there's this assumption in Hollywood that everyone who has PTSD, especially if they were in the military, is automatically violent. Like it's this disease that turns on the
Right.
I don't know the Hulk mode in your brain, and you become like a violent maniac or whatever, which is absolutely not true. And the Hurt Locker in particular, the scene where he pulls out his handgun and shoots into the car a bunch of times, that's like that's what it's portrayed as, but that's not true. I mean, I have PTSD. I've never shot anyone in the handgun like that. So,
Right.
like,
Yeah. Yep. Some of the Hollywood picturesque is it's all like very violent, very extreme. It's just it's too much for me, and we'll dispel some of those myths. So like that's why I wanted to like talk about is dispelling some of these myths and talking about what that diagnosis really looks like in kind of reality. So part of the reason I did want to talk about this too, of course, like we're Veterans for Peace, and PTSD is very much a veteran issue, right? And so this very much ties into as well like our push for saving the VA and making sure the VA is adequately funded to help veterans through these various issues, and PTSD being one of those various issues. So again, like the services that the VA offers, they are specialists in PTSD at this point. Their information is almost always on point, and the research that they provided to the field is tremendous. So always supporting the VA in terms of treatment for anything really. All right, so what do you think? Let's get in game for one, and then we'll come back to.
I think Pacifist Warbet also makes a good point. Where don't like the idea that it's just the price you pay, that you signed up for it, so you should just grit your teeth and bear it and not complain.
Right, that is a good myth too. Yep.
That you just get over it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
It'll
right.
just be done.
Yeah, we'll dispel that one too. But let's get in game and at least get something under our belt. So, I'm just gonna do easy bots co-op.
Sure.
Right. Will it like? Do you think it'll match us with other people, or will it just be us four?
I think it'll give us a fifth. I don't think the fifth will be a bot, but maybe it will.
What does this number 47 that's like counting down mean?
It's the timer at the top.
No, the one next where it says Easy Bots Co-op.
That's the estimated time. Yeah, okay, so to give us a fifth. The estimated time it'll take to match you.
Ah, okay.
They count down instead of up.
Oh.
I am the bulwark of the forest. Kernanos.
All right.
This is a great chance to learn whatever god seems cool to you.
Right.
I didn't know Guan Yu was considered a god.
In Chinese mythology, yeah. Well, I think he's more like the saint of war.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought he was like a human, like a skilled warrior or something.
Mm-hmm.
Test. Okay, good. My voice chat was on in game.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I should have turned that off.
Yep. So highly sensitive unicorn brought up another myth. And it's often like perpetuated by the DSM because the DSM criteria for diagnosing is so kind of specific. And like the DSM criteria, the main criteria for diagnosing, and I can just read it because I got the DSM right in front of me. Isn't that fancy?
Fancy.
Is exposure to actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violence in one or more of the following ways: directly experiencing, witnessing in person, learning that the traumatic event occurred to a close family member or close friend, experiencing repeated or extreme exposure to adverse details of the traumatic event. So that's like first responders, police officers, people who collect human remains, and things like that. So like very specific criteria for diagnosing.
I think I made a mistake here.
Yep. Yeah, so
Pull them all at once.
I probably should have explained, usually here in the beginning, before the minion waves start, there's a camp, 3 camps on each side, the left and the right side, that people farm up to get buffs. There's a mana camp, a damage camp, and an attack speed camp.
How would I turn off that commentary? Boy, that's annoying.
The commentary?
Yes.
Yo, announcer volume.
Killing spree.
And I gotta run back. I'm about to die here.
Double kill.
Ta-da!
There we go.
By the way, your F and G key are 2 relics. You'll start with just your F1, then you get to G will be a ward until you hit level 12, you'll be replaced with another relic. These are special items that you can get, like Aegis Amulet, gives you a second and a half of invulnerability, or something to increase your move speed, or to teleport, or to heal.
Wait. Why did I switch?
Ooh, I like this horse ability.
That's what Swarvet. Can you let me know if that's better? I was just doing that. Can you tell me if that volume's better? Awesome. Thank you.
There we go. Okay.
Right, it's all- Oh no.
Uh-oh. Thank you, whoever assisted me there.
Oh. I can change like battle modes to like a ranged and or a.
Yeah, Tiamat is a very difficult character because it has multiple sets of skills that change depending on what mode you're in.
Right.
Merlin, who I'm on, similar.
Triple kill. Quadra kill. Defy.
Alright, mana.
Did I get any reward for killing this
Fancy,
lion?
but just killed me.
Where you're at? Yes, that is a damage camp. It'll give you a damage buff.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So when you walk into it, you should see in the middle right of your screen, damage camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see it. Okay.
Then if you pick up this red orb.
Mm-hmm. Okay, because I had a purple one, too.
Oh, you have a purple one already. Okay,
Yeah,
then you
okay.
can't take it.
Oh, okay. Well, you go ahead and take that.
I'm still
Let's
dead.
go,
I didn't see that you already had the purple one.
Is there a secret to recovering mana faster?
Items that do it, otherwise going back to the base.
Oh, okay. Alright. Then I guess we'll have to do this old-fashioned way.
So Unicorn, why do you think that life that why is it important that life-threatening isn't part of the diagnosing criteria anymore? They ask you your mental health, bro.
Oh shoot! Sorry, I'm so focused on the game.
No, you're okay.
I can go ahead and answer that. Well, I guess from my opinion is, I guess if for something like sexual assault, right? Like maybe you're not in fear that your life is in danger, but you're still, it's obviously a traumatic thing no one should have to deal with. I don't know if that's up the alley of what we're.
Yeah. So some clinicians argue that PTSD wouldn't really be PTSD if it didn't have like that experiencing adverse effect, and it has to be life-threatening kind of component. But the downside of that is, of course, that it doesn't take into account really traumatic things that are not life-threatening. Like going through a really bad divorce, or poverty. Experiences of poverty can sometimes not necessarily be life-threatening, but still be really traumatic. Difficult childhood, it kind of will sometimes cancel out some of that. So like that life-threatening piece can sometimes be a drawback for helping people get a diagnosis, or really like getting that so they can have that kind of treatment that specializes in that. That's why newer research talks about something called complex PTSD that takes into account that sometimes maybe it's not life-threatening, but it could be like a series of traumatic events that happen kind of either all at once or over an extended period of time.
All right, let's see. How do I res this game?
You'll be on a respawn and you'll spawn back at
Okay, here we go.
base.
And it says you are able to upgrade shard to a new relic.
Yeah, that's your G shard.
Oh, okay,
you buy a
okay.
second one of those.
Cool. Oh, but we just won. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
I apparently had a lot of money. The game told me that I should have bought items with. Yep. I was too busy killing.
That was cool.
Least damage taken. Nice.
So yeah, we couldn't play the dodgeball game because there's 4 of us, unfortunately. So, let me take us out of this so we can kind of talk about the topic a little bit. Because there's so many different things with PTSD. So part of the other diagnosis part of the other criteria for the diagnosis is, of course, is kind of like a reliving or recurrent involuntary intrusive distressing memories of the traumatic event, but that could also be manifested in like dreams or social or environmental cues, like Unicorn brought up, like hearing fireworks can be difficult for some veterans, but like sometimes people who experience motor vehicle accidents have trouble getting in cars because it reminds them of the situation. So like this almost reliving or re-experiencing, or these intrusive memories or thoughts about whatever happened, is part of the criteria too. So like that's what makes it distinct from other mental health diagnosis, is that it's very much linked to something usually, which there's debate whether back and forth that is necessary or not. But like I said, someone argued earlier that like if it's not linked to something, then it could be something else, right? So that's what kind of makes it distinct. Yeah, many different sensory things. Partly too, PTSD is also associated with a feeling. So if a feeling can kind of bring back some of those memories too. So even if like I'm thinking of just having a like feeling of like low self-worth can bring back a lot of like the same types of triggers that you might have experienced because you had that similar feeling during your traumatic event. So like feelings can also be triggers as well. So that's why PTSD symptoms are so sometimes elusive, because those feelings, thoughts, situations can be like internal kind of all of a sudden thing, or an external like, oh, that happened, trigger to some of the like externalized behaviors that kind of comes with PTSD. So yeah, I know I'm saying a lot. What are your all's thoughts so far? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Yeah, it
think
does.
it makes absolute sense.
Definitely rings true for me.
Right.
And it gets better over time, and it's kind of what they teach you when you go to, in case you're thinking
Mhm.
about like, oh, maybe this affects me, like maybe
Mhm.
you want to know what they do when you go to treatment for it. I can definitely speak to that. And it's like it's just teaching you a lot of mental techniques to,
Mhm.
because at least the way I see it is it's never going to go away, but there's ways you can help make it manageable, which is what the medical professionals, they help you learn how to cope with that and stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes just being aware of what your triggers and symptoms are help
Yeah.
you manage it.
Yes. The perfect example is fireworks, right? Like that's one of
Mhm.
my things. I don't like fireworks, but when the 4th of July is, believe it or not, for me, I mean, it sucks, but it's not that bad because, well, when the 4th of July is, that people are going to be lighting off fireworks. So it's easy for me to mitigate that, pop some earplugs in or whatever,
Mhm.
or play some loud music. But then what gets me is, weeks after, or in this case, a month after, the 4th of July, you still got people popping off fireworks, and it's
Yeah.
when it's unexpected. Then that's kind of like when I don't know if it's called like the limbic system or whatever, kind of takes
Mhm.
over and makes you go into like lizard brain mode, I call it. You
Yep.
know,
Yep. That's kind of, I'm not a scientist, right?
hmm
I'm a social scientist, but not a medical degree person. But there is so this is why the show is titled to PTSD more than just a bad experience, because there's also a lot of physical changes that happen within the brain, and part of those physical changes is there is some sort of like disconnect or misfire between the amygdala and the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is where your memory is stored, and your amygdala is your fight, flight, or freeze experience. That's where those reflexes are stored. So, and there's some sort of disconnect. Usually, your hippocampus will fire off a memory. Your amygdala will go into fight, flight, or freeze, and then your prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that's supposed to kind of help you shut that down. And there's a disconnect there as well. So, like when you do brain scans, they can visibly see where those kind of disconnects are. And that's what makes PTSD more than just a bad experience. There becomes a physical change within how the brain interacts with its different sections.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you want to take us through? I know like we've kind of skirted around like the symptoms of
Mm-hmm.
PTSD, but like I know you were reading the DSM and we were talking about why the DSM definition is contested and changing.
Right.
But unfortunately, the American healthcare system utilizes DSM for mental health. So there are specific
Right.
symptoms recognized due to
Mm-hmm.
PTSD, and you want to go through those and talk about
Yeah.
um, how those exhibit themselves a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And I'll try not to give you like the DSM version. There's a layman version that I kind of have in front of me now too. So it's not as like wordy and medical. So the first symptom, of course, is like this reliving of the event that I kind of already talked about, right? So there's this intrusive, unwelcome memories or feelings or nightmares or some sort of like bringing yourself back to that kind of event. It doesn't have to be like, some people think like reliving the event is like a flashback, like you would see in the movies where, you know, like the vision goes cloudy and like you're all of a sudden like seeing the whole thing again or something like that. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be that, but I'm saying that it doesn't have to be that like huge thing, right? Like it doesn't have to be all of that. Sometimes just being brought back, sometimes your body goes back and your memory doesn't necessarily recall what's happening.
Yeah, I have an interesting anecdote about that. I guess is mine comes from combat experience in part, right?
Mhm.
So it was like where it was mortars, and they have a very distinct whistling sound, and then when they land, they they have the explosion and all, and it was like almost as if like, okay, I know that I live in Kansas, right? I know in Kansas there's not people launching mortars, but it's just like hearing either a whistling sound or like an explosion that reminds me of that,
Right.
especially if you can feel it. It's like I don't even think that I'm back there. It's like my body reacts before my mind does, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. Yep. And sometimes it's simple as like when I got back from Afghanistan, every time I saw a slightly heavier Toyota Corolla on the road, like I would make distance, right? Like between that, right? Because it just like, oh, that's just what you did, right? So it's like it brought that memory back. That was my first thought. Is like you see that Toyota Corolla, oh, I got to be careful, right? I
Mhm.
know in the United like that's, you know, it's unreasonable to think that that's going to happen here. So it doesn't have to be as like big as that kind of flashback style, but it can be something much smaller, you know, just being able to be brought back to that behavior or feeling. The next kind of big criteria is avoidance, right? So whenever people experience something bad, they end up avoiding it, right? So, you know, you have a bad experience at a restaurant, um, and you just end up avoiding that restaurant, right? You just don't go back. And that seems perfectly reasonable. But when it turns into things that remind you of that restaurant or that might trigger you about that restaurant or might be slightly similar to that restaurant, then you start avoiding those and it becomes hard, right? Like it interrupts your daily life. So avoidance is when people end up avoiding things that trigger that PTSD in some way, but it becomes problematic, right? I could avoid Afghanistan. I never have to go back there, right? If I choose never to go back there, that's reasonable. But I can't avoid like, you know, walking past the Middle Eastern aisle in my grocery store, right? If that for some reason triggers me because of the lettering on a word or on a package, right? That becomes problematic. So I don't go to the grocery store. So those avoidant behaviors can be very difficult for people to deal with because they just end up avoiding doing a lot of things they would normally do.
Yeah, and fear of crowds, like I noticed, at least for me, like I never had a traumatic event that involved a large crowd of people, but just being in a public space by around a lot of people would still make me nervous. So sometimes these symptoms can be something that's completely unrelated to what you went through, but
Mhm.
like I just don't like being in crowds of people, even though that didn't have anything to do with what I went through. So it can manifest in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, for sure. Because it could bring you back to that feeling too, right?
Hmm.
Like, um, who here as a veteran, right, always
Hmm.
sits with their back to a wall so they can see the rest of the room, right?
Yeah,
That
I'm
is
gonna sit
also an
next to
avoidant
glass
behavior,
window. Yeah.
right? It's also an avoidant behavior, you
Hmm.
know? So, like, sometimes I've actually challenged myself to sit in the middle of the room.
And you know what? An interesting thing about that
So
too is
uncomfortable.
another group of people that affects a lot that I didn't really know until I went to college is formerly incarcerated people, right?
Mhm.
They also have a similar but again, like we were saying earlier,
Mhm.
society thinks like soldiers and military personnel are the only ones who get it, and it's
Yep.
like no, it's really not true.
So I got two more symptoms I want to get through. But I also want to like highlight highly sensitive unicorn in the chat. You know, I agree. Like the DSM sometimes is not the best, and like the rest of the world uses the ICD-10, which is another diagnostic tool. And America with its uniqueness has to be different, just like like the ICD-10 is like the metric system, and the DSM is like I don't even know what our system's called, if it is a system. But it's just sometimes not as on point as you'd like. I feel like what they should do is be able to add more subcategories to a lot of diagnosis. I don't think there's enough of those. That would help diversify some of the diagnostics or diagnosis. That way, people can get the help that they need. The next main symptom I want to talk about is having more negative thoughts and feelings than before. So a lot of people will just overall feel more sad, or more numb, or more down, or more angry, just having trouble expressing positive emotions in general. Unfortunately, what happens is, and I think this is why the stereotype is for men, I think masculinity plays a role in this, and like men externalize all these negative feelings. So like when they have negative feelings, they end up yelling or screaming or throwing things or something like that, even though the men PTSD is highlighted so much in the media, but women actually are diagnosed at a higher rate with PTSD than men. But it's just that we don't, women are allowed to express society wise. And I'm not saying this, I'm just saying society's acceptability, sometimes in healthier ways than men. So men end up externalizing so much. And I think that's why that stereotype of the angry outburst comes in, because that's the stereotype, right? And that's how men externalize it. More often when I did like treatment, when I was helping with treatment at the VA, a lot of people would go through like an anger management class too, just to supplement their treatment, because a lot of that negative feelings that you experience with PTSD can be handled in healthier ways. And a lot of that anger management helps people learn not to externalize necessarily that anger in violence, but in more constructive ways.
Another thing I wanted to say about that too is not just anger, but another thing I've noticed is risk-taking behaviors, because
Right.
it's like Phoenix was saying, if you're feeling numb inside, eventually you go so long and you want to feel something. So if you can't feel positive emotions, like the best thing is an adrenaline rush. So
Yeah.
you'll see a lot of people driving recklessly, like
Yep.
if you know anyone who got back from a deployment, they probably had a bunch of money saved up. They'll go buy a new fast motorcycle, or they'll do drunk driving, using drugs and alcohol in excess, a lot of things.
And that actually leads me to the last symptom I really wanted to talk about. Was it's just feeling on edge. So feeling jittery or keyed up, or like having difficulty relaxing. And a lot of that becomes externalized in risky behaviors. And part of it too is linking this back to our substance use discussion. That can be that risky behavior, right? So that wanting to feel numb, using, substances in excess, maybe that you knew you shouldn't be using, can be that externalizing behavior. So feeling on edge, having that feeling pent up, those adrenaline junkies, that always have to kind of get that they might be trying to compensate. New motorcycle, did you get one recently?
I may have come back from both my deployments and bought brand new motorcycles. The first, I'm actually going to put a caveat on this. I came back from my first deployment and bought a motorcycle and was riding the motorcycle to my motorcycle safety course on base to
Bet
get
your
my
NCOs
license.
love that.
Yeah, that was yeah. So like I came back and bought a very fast motorcycle.
They teach motorcycle safety classes on base.
Yeah, it's actually
yeah.
a requirement to have your motorcycle license while you're in service. because
Yeah.
so
Oh,
many
oh.
vets were dying to or getting
Yeah,
severely fucked
Yeah.
up on motorcycles.
I know it's an option
Yeah.
for like a civilian driver's license to get
Mhm.
your motorcycle endorsement.
You must go through the safety course if you're
Yeah, they
in
won't
the
even let
military.
you on post
Mhm.
with your motorcycle if you don't have it on your license.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not even joking right now.
The
Sorry,
worst
I was laughing at my brother in the chat.
Uh,
the
Um,
worst part about that, Super, is that the adrenaline rush was from you threatening his life afterwards, not the plane jump. That's the worst part about that.
Right? Right? Actually, that is a legitimate point. So PTSD doesn't necessarily have to like react like quickly after it.
mhm.
It can manifest itself in new behaviors. But yes, I did take my grandmother skydiving, and it was great. I highly recommend. But I was scared the whole time. Pacifist War Vet in the chat brings up a really good point too, is that there is it's there she says they have a million tools to use in a crisis during an anxiety attack, but dealing with overall individual and the cause of the PTSD are way more complex. And it took a really long time for me to make it to a doctor who worked on that with me. Right. And it is so, I'm talking about these symptoms and you're like, yep, okay, that makes sense. Yep. But then when you get down to the like nitty gritty of trying to really address that traumatic event, it gets hard and it gets really complicated. And people avoid PTSD treatment like the plague because it is literally that triggering event sometimes. A lot of the PTSD treatment methods, at least for talk therapy, is kind of going through some of that experience.
Oh yeah, and then have like if you're in applying for something like VA disability for PTSD, I know I had to do this. I had to relive that experience at least like 5 times because they want you to type it out on one form, and then you got to go like talk to your friend like, hey, can I get a buddy statement about what we went through? And yeah, it's that's a very good point.
Yeah, so people avoid treatment a lot because of that. Plus, of course, the stereotype of treatment, and that's the other thing Sin brought up, right? That myth of like it's somehow makes you weak. But I wanna play around, right? Let's play around a smite while I think about.
I'm gonna get a water real quick while we wait to start.
Cool.
Go ahead and cue us up.
All right.
Looks like the screens are still really big on this one, Sen. On the screen.
Say again?
Looks like our cams are big, partially overlaying the.
Yeah, I have us on the I have 3 different frames now. I got fancy.
Oh, you did.
This is the halfway. We're in queue, so you can focus and talk and listening to us.
All right. Fair enough. Here we go.
All right. I love how Super Destructo in the chat, only commies do mental health. Oh my gosh. So that is like a legit thing sometimes. So I don't know what my dad used to say it all the time, because I'm a mental health professional and he wasn't like enthusiastic about my professional choice. But he talks about there's a document, I think it was actually written by an FBI agent about communism, and he outlines like a bunch of things that communists are trying to do, and one of the things in that is normalize mental health.
Oh man, really?
And so yeah, that's his justification for like not wanting to engage with mental health stuff.
Oh dear. Oh man, that's like a tangible aspect of anti-communism being harmful.
Yeah, no kidding. You hit the nail on the head. Holy cow.
I mean, I'm a communist, so obviously I'm going to be biased, but like that right there, it seems to me like encouraging negligence and stuff.
Yeah, like McCarthyism at its
like the people in AA who tell you I've never met them, but I've heard of them, where they tell you to stop taking your antidepressants because they're a drug. It seems to me like the same thing,
right.
Like please don't do that.
Yeah. Yes, please don't do that. I'm gonna try Horus.
I'm gonna be a warrior. I really like Guan Yu. You can just get in there and smack everybody with his large pole. I don't know what is the name for that weapon that he has.
Glaive?
A glaive. Okay. See, when I said glaive, I was thinking more like
Halberd?
Illidan Storm Rage from WoW.
Hmm.
What did you say, Phoenix?
Oh.
That's I thought it was a halberd, but I think it's similar but not quite the same.
Yeah, I thought a halberd had a
Halberd's a poleaxe.
Yeah,
Guan Yu's
yeah.
Guan Yu's weapon is the Guan Dao. It's a double-edged blade on the end of a pole, like a halberd. His blade is specifically titled the Green Dragon Crescent Blade.
Huh.
And the soul of the body. You may come.
All right. Persephone, that's what my my 6-year-old daughter asked me to change her middle name to.
Hey, she
Yeah.
has good taste.
Yeah.
Taste.
Oh no, because I was telling her, I was like, she was like, "Oh, was there anything else you wanted to name me when I was growing up, and or when I was, when Mom was pregnant with me?" I was like, "Oh, Persephone.
yeah,
That's
what
what
we-
I wanted." And she's
we doing
like, "I
here in
like
the-
that name." Oh, what's this? Ooh.
Oop, I may have made a critical error here.
Yeah, it's 3v5 right now.
Yep, that was an error.
Oh,
What happened?
Just waged right into them as a caster. I could use help with this Guan dude on me.
Yep.
hey, all right.
Got him. Get off me.
I gotta.
Now that I'm done embarrassing
All right.
myself.
I'm gonna go flank these Roman dudes.
Yeah, those are the minions.
Okay.
What is this obelisk that pops up?
That
Somebody's ability?
is and her, I believe, on their team, the lion.
Ah. Alright, get out of here. Oh.
Okay, what is guard guy? Protective. Oh, it's elite.
I don't know what my ultimate does, but it just hurt them.
Killing spree.
Little shoot.
I see the choice.
Ah,
Ooh.
I died.
Thor threw his hammer at you. Push back. Oh, sin.
I didn't realize I was getting punching them out there. What should I buy? How do I buy?
I to bring up your inventory, and then
Okay.
I usually just sit on the recommended stats. I'm sure that's not a pro gamer move, but oh, you're up there alone, son. Just so you know.
Yeah. I'm trying to beat Thor's butt. There we go.
I think I did my upgrades.
Infectious leadership is giving everyone a combat bonus.
Super. Do not talk shit on my League of Legends strategy. It has kept me. It has kept me at the very top of bronze for a decade.
Yeah. Sin would have never been able to get out of Wood League if it wasn't for face checking.
I know. First thing they teach you.
Oh shoot! What's my ult?
I blame somebody for not telling me that I was a mid laner.
You're a mage.
I mean,
You even
I
said
don't-
you
I
were a
don't-
squishy mage when you
I
made
don't
your
know what
first
the meta
mistake.
is. I don't know what meta in this game is.
If you would
Same.
like, after this, I can explain all 5 roles and
Yeah,
how they
that would be helpful.
how they
I'm
relate
just
to
like
League's
going in
roles.
deep mode in this game. I don't know if I'm actually being productive or not.
What is this red circle? Should I be beating it up right now?
Oh, you mean that red circle on the wall?
Yeah.
That is the gate that we're trying to deliver our minions to. So, in Arena, you have 500 tickets, and when you kill enemy gods, it takes away tickets when you score minions in their home point. It takes away tickets, and also when you destroy their minions, gives you tickets.
Oh, I'm fighting myself right now. Oh no.
Oh, shoot.
How do I regen mana?
You can press B to go back to base.
Doesn't sound like it'll help me kill anybody faster.
That's true. It won't. You could buy mana potions.
Ooh.
How do I buy the? Oh, you said press I.
I have the Baron's
stuff.
Brew. I don't even know what that does. Okay. Please.
I got 600 some coins.
Whoa.
Alright. Might help if I knew what my abilities do.
Immortal! Triple kill! Deploy slain lives on. Rampage! Ta-da! An enemy has been slain. Double kill. Defined!
There we go. Yeah. Oh no.
There's a party. I will see. Unstoppable.
I figured out Baron's combo. Yep. Oh, that's what the ult does. Thank you, enemy Baron, for teaching me.
Ah, shoot. The concept of this game is really cool.
Yeah, the fact that everything's a skill shot is
Right?
interesting.
Taking me a second to figure out how to place the AoEs
Mhm.
on that
Yeah.
skill shot, like to get your distance right, but it doesn't seem like it's too hard.
Right.
The items bind to C, and what's the other letter that they bind to? So I'm just gonna...
F and G are what the two active items bind.
And then, like, if I buy a potion, I know, like, my potion went to C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't usually use consumables, but
Oh, okay.
C and...
I'm just trying to set up my Tartarus here, which, by the way, everyone should get one. They're pretty amazing.
Consumable one is C and Z, or Z.
Z, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep, so real quick, the 5 types of, I guess, classes for all the different gods are Assassin, Warrior, Guardian, Mage, and Hunter.
Mhm.
Assassins are going to be your quick, nimble, take people down really quick. They're usually the jungler on the team. Warrior is your bruiser, or character that's kind of durable, kind of does damage. They are usually your top laner.
Mhm.
Guardian are your tanks. They're usually the supports on the team. Mage are your mid laners, mages, and Hunter is the ADC. Usually a lot of left clicking with some abilities that help that.
The hunter is the what's the ADC mean?
AD carry. They're your bottom lane if you play League. Person that attacks a lot, like your Ashe or your Vayne or things like that.
So they're like a DPS. Okay.
Yeah, the
your,
DPS.
Your mage, your mage is going to be burst damage through abilities, and your hunter or ADC is going to be auto attacking damage sustained.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
And
Cool.
Warrior, kind of what you've been playing with Guan Yu, is a mix between damage and durability.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna stick with that one. I like it.
Cool.
Let's see what warriors are currently. King Arthur's a warrior on rotation. I wouldn't recommend him. He's pretty difficult. He like switches between two different sword stances, so he had like his Q, W, and E switch abilities, and you have to build up charge, and then that charge is used in your ult. One god I would really recommend is Chalk, the Mayan god of rain. Chalk is a phenomenal warrior. He has a really big axe that he goes around swinging. He makes rain come down on people. It heals him and slows everyone else. He's a lot of fun.
Chalk.
Plus, all of his skins are puns.
Here he is. Okay, and then there's these yellow ones, are the ones you earn in game. You just get those for playing.
I believe so. I think they're
Okay.
the starter ones.
So I got 3683, and it says I need 5,500 to unlock a new god.
Okay. Yeah, the yellow stuff is favor, and then you spend that favor to unlock gods.
Okay. Okay.
But if you bought the
Ultimate
God?
God pack.
yeah,
Oh
That'll
no,
give you all
not
those
yet.
for free.
it was like $6.
Yeah, if
Oh,
you want to, you
huh.
can.
So that
But
way
that'll unlock every god in the game and every god they release.
Oh wow, and it's only $6.
It's
Yeah.
usually 30, I think. It's on sale right now.
well, it doesn't give you like the game pass.
No, it doesn't give you the battle passes. Those
What's
are
the battle pass do?
it just gives you a bunch of little boosts and like cosmetic stuff. Like this
Oh,
one right
yeah,
now is
yeah.
for Stranger Things.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend the battle pass unless like you're playing pretty consistently.
No. All right.
So
Also, Phoenix, if you don't like the default caster, you could always change to a new caster. If you click on the like little person icon profile in the bottom right, you can go to then the bottom of that loadout, and it lets you switch your avatar to your little icon, with the different loading frames, announcers, so you could actually change your announcer to a different language if you wanted. Any of these that you feel like. I keep on Punk Duck. I probably wouldn't recommend Punk Duck. He's kind of an asshole, but he really makes me laugh.
All right, I'm gonna play as Oh, I like his axe. This guy looks
Yeah.
cool. We're gonna go with him. Yeah,
I
look at man, he's
literally-
doing finger tricks with his shield.
Mm-hmm.
I had to turn off the announcer like
Yep,
completely.
you could do that too.
Super annoying. So let's go back to topic for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I was saying something about dispelling sins myth. What was that again, though? A short-term
weak.
memory loss. Huh? Oh, weak. Right.
If you have PTSD, you're weak.
Right.
Can't hack it.
So, and that brings actually to, I gotta find the study information that I found, but the this is why I wanted to highlight like some of the biological components, because there is a genetic component in some ways. So people can be like predisposed genetically to develop PTSD at some point, though finding exactly the exact chromosomal link or whatever genetic link has been difficult. But there is this pattern of or there's a genetic correlation. There's this pattern of PTSD that can be passed down through family. And part of that too might be also this link of like historical trauma or historical PTSD or something like that. It's had a few different names. It's not a DSM diagnosis, but they talk about historical trauma in terms of populations like Native American populations who had experienced a genocide in this country, Jewish populations who experienced a genocide in Europe. Yeah. Super Destructo said generational trauma, very similar. All those kind of things allude to this fact that, so this is a very basic understanding of this, but if so there's the genetic component. If a person develops PTSD in their life, there is a genetic correlation, and they do a lot of this through mice testing. So if you have a parent that has PTSD, there are factors that get passed on to the genetic offspring in terms of like difficulty, like like a detached personality type or stressor related factors like high blood pressure or increased like cholesterol predisposition. Those things can kind of like get passed on in terms of like PTSD, that genetic kind of component. But there's also this social component where you have parents that have PTSD and then they externalize those behaviors in some way. And then the child experiences those externalizations and then eventually develops PTSD because of those externalizations. Yeah, epigenetics. For some reason that word was escaping me. There is epigenetics. If you just Google it, read about it, it is a fascinating field trying to link this genetic component for the presentation of these phenotypical appearances or conditions that we can actually measure and see. So it's really interesting. It's way above my head in terms of trying to like break this down for you, but just the fact that there is this measurable piece, this measurable genetic as well as biological factor that plays a role in PTSD and the development of PTSD, like really just disproves Sin's myth, right? There's not an amount of weakness if you're kind of born with it, right? Is it weak if I was born without a hand? No, it's just I was born without a hand, right? So that predisposes me to having to deal with that issue, right? So it's like it's just that some people are just more predisposed, and again, it is not a weakness for having experienced something traumatic. So here's another statistic which I thought was interesting. 70% of adults in the US have experienced some type of traumatic event at least once in their life. So 70% of our population experiences at least one traumatic event. 20% of those people go on to develop PTSD. And an estimated 8% of Americans have PTSD at any given time. That's a huge number of people. So even 8%, currently in the United States, there are 24.4 million people with PTSD in the United States. It's just an astronomical number. And so part of this too is you also have to ask yourself of like, why is it 70% of adults in the US experience some sort of traumatic event? Wonder how that would compare to other countries.
Yes, so for example, maybe a country that one of the 7 that the United States is currently conducting military operations in.
Right?
Because if anything, going through the experience I did, it took me some time to reflect on it, right? But after I really reflect on it, I feel that being in that kind of a situation made me empathize more because I was deployed to Iraq, right? So really reflecting on, like shit, if getting bombed 1 or 2 nights made me feel this bad, like I can't begin to imagine how like an Iraqi civilian has nothing to do with anything, just trying to make a living for their family would feel, or the children, God forbid, like
We talk about and we hear about how children in Iraq and Afghanistan don't like clear days. They celebrate rainy days or days with high cloud cover because of the fear of every single moment of every single bright, sunny, cloudless sky day is a day that a drone strike is going to occur, and has affected them personally, whether through killing a member of their family or friends or somebody in their community, as a civilian, as an unintentional target or an intentional target in the drone assassination program that America currently runs. So, if children are celebrating rainy days because there's specifically drone bombings, like that is generations and cultures that have PTSD. That is generational trauma that child is going to pass on through epigenetics or through untreated PTSD symptoms, when angry outbursts or emotional distancing affects the relationships of that child when they're an adult and have their own family, and that trauma and the harm of that trauma to that child gets passed on through the acts and behaviors and emotional difficulties in later in life. Everybody around a person affected with PTSD has it, is affected by it.
For sure.
And so I think that's an important thing to say. It's not like the victims of our imperialistic wars are need to be recognized for the trauma that we do to them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think about, all the civilian casualties in Iraq. That's like over 200,000 civilian casualties, I believe, in Iraq. And all of them were the brother, son, mother, daughter, sibling, spouse of someone else.
And keep in mind, those are numbers from the United States, the 200,000. So, I can only imagine that the real number is much higher.
Right. So war is trauma. And that's why veterans do come back with a high rate of PTSD. But refugee populations also have very high rates of PTSD. And that's the other half of that coin. That's the other half of that. We bring veterans back here, and I think about all the interpreters that we're bringing from Afghanistan here now, which is great, by the way. I 100% support that. But how many of them might need mental health support after having to experience living in that country, especially helping Americans? And then even just the threat of being killed if they couldn't get out.
Or their family, because I know one interpreter we worked with. Yeah, he was just kind of smoking with him one day and joking around. I was like, "Why are you doing this, man?" Like, it is like, other than the pay, it's like they killed my entire family, So like, yeah, I would imagine someone like that, and I imagine he's not the only one. Definitely need help as well.
Right. Yeah. So I wanted to look it up too, and this might be the other half of that too. So, I said this uses a statistic of 9.2% of U.S. adults aged 45 to 59 have been diagnosed with PTSD, followed by, that's the highest demographic, and then 30 to 44s was 8.2, and it just kind of decreases a little bit there, but generally around like 8% of the U.S. population. In Australia, it was 1.3% of Australian adults. In Canada, it was 2% of Canadians at any given time. In Sweden, it doesn't give me a yearly percentage, but it gave me a lifelong percentage of 5.6. In Netherlands, it was 3.3% in any given year. So, like, in all these other developed countries, well, I hate using that term developed. In all these other Western countries, comparable to United States, their PTSD rates are a lot lower. So that brings us to, like, there is an inherent risk in the lack of social safety nets that we have in the United States that a lot of these other countries have. And then also their access to treatment options for things, right? Like, you know, in the United States, how many undiagnosed cases of PTSD might there be? Because people can't afford treatment. So,
or misdiagnosed too, I think is an important one to talk about as well.
Yeah. So that's just interesting. Let's see.
I don't know if any of the research showed. I was saying about misdiagnosis, like how common is that for, like, I don't know, say someone comes in with, perfect example, an alcohol problem, right? And they go to get alcohol treatment. How often is it the case that, you know, maybe obviously they have an alcohol problem, but where the underlying cause of that issue, whether it's alcohol or whatever, might be PTSD, and that's how they're trying to treat themselves with it.
Right. I can't give you, like, I don't have that kind of statistic. But alluding to that, there's a large comorbidity with PTSD. So, like, people with PTSD are also likely to be diagnosed with a SUD, the major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, chronic fatigue syndrome, impotence in men can also is correlated with PTSD. So there's like a large rate of, like, comorbidity, which might allude to a larger rate of misdiagnosis, right? If I come in and, you know, I've just been diagnosed with depression, not PTSD, that's a misdiagnosis. Maybe I needed both. Maybe both are occurring at the same time, which is very, very plausible. I think more often than not, like, misdiagnosis might be just like a both and situation rather than like one or the other sometimes.
Right. Yeah, I guess I just meant it like, you know, obviously you can have both, but how many get treated for one and then they just, you know, oh, it's not PTSD, so it never even gets considered.
Right. This is an interesting statistic. 17% of combat troops are women. 71% of female military personnel develop PTSD due to sexual assault within their ranks. And it just another reason don't join the military. Things like that are pervasive.
Yeah, it's almost 3 and 4.
Right. It is disgusting how often that kind of stuff.
I've seen it. It destroys people's lives just as much as any kind of combat. I'm not trying to compare and say, I'm just saying, like, the sexual trauma absolutely just destroys people's lives when they get out. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Like, it's very serious.
It's horrible. And you know, again, just like, sorry, I keep changing my lighting, still trying to find the perfect one. It just goes to show you how horrible, like, just joining the military puts you at a greater risk for just about everything. Right? Like, a greater risk of developing mental health issue, greater risk of developing a substance use disorder, greater risk of developing cancer, or, you know, greater risk of back problems, knee
And
problems.
I want to emphasize real quick that this isn't just only for people who deploy. Like, I know
Right.
people, it happens to every, so don't think, oh, I'll just join the military and get a non-deployable job, because one, those don't exist, and two,
Right.
you know, I just want to make that clear. Like, it happens to everybody.
Right. A lot of it happens stateside, especially for our female identifying soldiers. And
More soldiers died at Fort Hood than in Afghanistan. True fact in 2020.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
due to suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Basic is traumatic. You know, so there's a lot of different things. I know we're focusing on the military experience of PTSD, but I also definitely want to highlight that it isn't just the military. I know we're focusing on it because most of us are military, and this is a, you know, Veterans for Peace, so we focus on the military. But you know, one of the other populations that I know that has a higher rate of PTSD than veterans is actually children who have been in foster care. So if you've been in foster care at some point in your life, you're more likely to develop PTSD.
Did they say, I know we discussed car accidents before that. Is car accidents more prevalent than military service as well? I know it's one of the most prevalent.
Yeah, so that is a huge experience. There is some like research, and I'd have to look more up about it. There's a little bit of research that talks about like the type of event, and more often than not, like human on human events cause more PTSD. So like being mugged or being threatened with a knife or something like that is more likely to, or sexual assault, intimate partner violence, those types of things are more likely to cause like a PTSD diagnosis than like a natural disaster or an earthquake or maybe even like a car accident, only because like
there's less interpersonal conflict there.
Yeah, there's this like you know, overtly negative thing that humans cannot wrap their head around when we do something really horrible to each other. It's part of you know, they used to think this, especially in the DSM-3, and it still lingers in the DSM-4.
Use the bathroom. Be right back.
In the military or in the mental health field, is that, you know, PTSD is very much linked to a traumatic event that is like outside of your control, that you can't comprehend. So like it's really hard to comprehend, like, you know, because I personally don't think I ever could even do it, right? Like, you know, how desperate would I be to have to mug somebody, right? I don't think I have the temperament for it. So it would be hard for me to understand someone who would do that out of desperation or something like that. It would be hard for me to wrap my head around, right? Another symptom of PTSD that's kind of less talked about is a change in worldview. So sometimes people who are mugged, their worldview changes, right? And so maybe they experienced being mugged by you know, a person in an urban environment, so therefore all city people are now like really violent and like don't have manners or can't show respect or things like that. That becomes this worldview, and this overgeneralizing kind of way of comprehending it is like a defense mechanism, but they still cannot like wrap their head around it if you talk to them like more specifically about it. That overgeneralization is like a defense mechanism. So it's really interesting how that interpersonal aspect comes into play. They did a lot when they compared to like natural disasters. People who have been through earthquakes or tsunamis or things like that tend not to develop PTSD as at a higher rate. So, and I know I'm doing a lot of talking. Any other thoughts? Like, I'm on my soapbox here today, guys. This is my bread and butter.
Go ahead, son.
I like listening to Phoenix be on a soapbox. I appreciate it. But I wanted to touch on what Pacifist Warvet said about basic training being traumatic, and I absolutely 100% agree. Basic training, boot camp, that interaction, that period of time that you're going through, is designed in principle, in name and doctrine, to be a traumatic experience to get you to be able to sustain yourself under stressful experiences. And go to YouTube and just pull up DI, like drill instructor, Marine Corps drill instructor, and you'll find thousands upon thousands of videos that are glorifying the just raw abuse and indoctrination of teenagers into just violence. Like the only response is violence, just completely just in order to make that military machine mindset. And that in and of itself is traumatic, especially to a still developing brain at 17, 18, 19 years old that is just getting out of high school, probably forming the first set of brand new relationships away from home in any way, shape, or form. And the authoritative, the person in a position of authority, leadership, and mentorship is there to abuse you physically and mentally and emotionally the entire time. And Marine Corps, that's a 3-month-long boot camp. For Air Force, it's 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Like it does, however long your boot camp is, your basic training is a traumatic experience, and it is disabling to a lot of people coming out of that. And then asked to operate inside the structure that reinforces and built around that traumatic abuse, that traumatized mindset. A lot of people get called shitbirds or things like that, and a lot of the symptoms of PTSD include executive dysfunction, anxiety, and depression, like symptoms, and all those things completely affect your ability to operate inside of a neurotypical or like the hierarchical must do work productivity based system that we have. And people get absolutely fucked just from that, and then which makes them and predisposes them to further traumatic experiences when they're going into boot camp or going into combat zones and incoming fire and so on. And it builds the entire war machine is trauma inducing by design and in doctrine. And it's part of why we're here to like doing this Gamers for Peace thing, because we're recognizing that the military in and of itself, that model is unhealthy, period, and is destructive to humans.
One question about Basic Sin.
Yep.
After completing it, does all that treatment kind of like stop and you're suddenly one of us, or does it stay reinforced?
So there's the multi-tiered way of coming into like the fleet in the Marine Corps. So while you're going through boot camp, you're like, I'll graduate, I'll get my EGA, my Eagle Globe and Anchor. It's the symbol of the Marine Corps, right? So you're doing 3 months of boot camp, you go through the Crucible, and you get your Eagle Globe and Anchor. The entire time you've been promised when you graduate, you're a Devil Dog, you're a Marine, you're one of us. Then you get to MCT, Marine Combat Training, or AIT if you're infantry, Advanced Infantry Training. You go to the next stage, which is just advanced boot camp. It's more combat drills, and that behavior, the language changes, but the intention and the hierarchical nature of the power structure and dynamics are just further reinforced. And then when you get to the fleet, you have a 19-year-old Lance Corporal that can only flex their power in just lording it over anybody that else is coming in, whether that's good for unit cohesion or not. I mean, just the training model, so that abuse behavior is constant, especially, and it just changes into more tact gets applied to it the higher rank you go. But throughout the military, the higher ranked people are shitting on or reinforcing that nature.
Okay,
throughout the entire system.
So that traumatic stress is just reinforced the entire time you're within the service.
I would
Army's the
say
same
so.
way. Yeah,
Okay.
Army's the same way, I would say as well. Works very similar.
Yeah. So kind of moving forward, because I want to kind of wrap up today. I think we'll play one more and then we'll kind of wrap up. But the reason I wanted to turn this into a series is because how much it does affect veterans to begin with, right? But how much there really is to talk about. And there is a lot of good research out there. There's a lot of hope in terms of healing PTSD. And there's a lot of good research in resiliency that can improve your odds in never developing PTSD or combating your PTSD. So there's so much information out there, and I wanted to just kind of give everybody this kind of groundwork understanding of PTSD. Even though this is like super basic, this is probably the most basic information you can get out there. There's a lot of good books. I highly recommend one book. It's called How the Body Keeps the Score. It's written by Bessel van der Kolk, Dr. van der Kolk. And he's probably one of the leading researchers in PTSD. It's a really good book. It's not overly heady. A lot of great information. But he talks about a lot of like different treatment models. One of his favorites is actually a theater style treatment model where you don't act out your trauma or anything like that, nothing crazy, but how actually just participating in theater helps people process different experiences within themselves. So there's a lot of interesting research around that I think is really cool. And then of course, like we talked about it before, some interesting research around treatment of PTSD using psilocybin or mushrooms. There's a lot of good treatment options out there. More often, it's just being able to actually seek the help. There is help, but it is hard. It is work. Yeah, expressive arts therapy is where it's at. Yep, I couldn't remember the term, but that is. I have my own theory. So let me give you Phoenix's thoughts of PTSD treatment. And this is very much a masculine perspective from the military, all that jazz, right? So just keeping that in mind. But one of the things I say about PTSD is that it was sometimes manifests out of an inability to control a situation, or like get through something successfully, right? And sometimes, and this is where the like thrill seekers kind of come in, right? Is they're trying to get through a situation successfully, and that kind of becomes cathartic towards the PTSD. That's why sometimes like exposure therapies or exposure hierarchies are really, really successful. But I thought what was really good for me at one point was I ran like Spartan races, and I did that like repeatedly over and over and over, and that was such like a cathartic experience of like being able to overcome something really challenging. And so maybe it's not like a recreation or anything like that of the event, but overcoming something really challenging can be very healing, I think, for people with PTSD. And so maybe there's a process of facilitating something like that. I don't know. It was just kind of my thought that, because a lot of it too is like when you talk when PTSD manifests, it's this like sap to your confidence, right? I didn't manage this well, or I should have done better, or I should have like, it becomes this like constant like self-deprecating kind of thing. And if you can increase your sense of accomplishment, that your sense of capability, I think that is a great way of combating PTSD. It might be kind of a roundabout way without having to directly face your trauma. So yeah, that was just kind of my theory about some PTSD treatment that might be a little bit alternative. So just gonna make everybody do mud runs. But something like, that you think you couldn't do. But yeah, there's a lot of great research, like or treatment options. EMDR is a great treatment option. Like highly sensitive unicorn said, expressive arts therapy. We talked about that. Um,
I've heard hypnosis can work for some people.
yep.
If
Sometimes
you,
yeah.
if you're what's the word? I don't want to say vulnerable to it, but if
Mhm.
you are susceptible to it.
Yeah. Yep. I like how highly sensitive unicorn brings that up in chat. Like that creative thought um is outside that lizard brain. And so it helps the more often you can do creative things, it helps you step outside that lizard brain so you're not constantly in that space, and helps rebuild that connection between your amygdala and your hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. So yeah, that's a great and then there are treatment options that do kind of more directly face your trauma. And we'll talk about a lot of those in the future. You know, we'll have an episode on treatment options, but some of them are like cognitive processing therapy. There is prolonged exposure therapy. That's not necessarily like, you know, making people re-experience the trauma, but sometimes it's like, you know, watching a video or imagining the experience, you know, kind of over and over, so that way you can kind of desensitize yourself. So there are some harder treatment options, but there's also some that are a bit more creative. And then of course there's medication. Sometimes the SSRIs are extremely helpful. There's also some mood regulating medications that people have used in the past as well. And then there's those alternative therapies, like marijuana has been shown to have some very good as very good success as a treatment option. So there's a lot of great research, and that's why I want to turn this into a series. We got a baseline, so now we get to move forward and talk about like what resiliency factors might be playing a role, and what kind of successful treatment options are there out there, and what does like new and budding research look like. So I would love to be able to do that moving forward. So I think next time we will talk about treatment options. I think that'll probably be the best one. Can you go through extreme trauma and not get so that's what Dark Messiah brought up, something really interesting, right? So can you go through extreme trauma and not get PTSD through the year and a half I spent as a volunteer firefighter? For sure. So like those statistics said, 70% of people go through a traumatic event. Only 20% of people develop PTSD, at least in the United States. And yeah, so when I talked about like those resiliency factors, there's a lot that people have in place already that helps them, you know, kind of withstand some of that trauma. Not all of it. I don't think anybody like ever goes through a traumatic event and comes out unfazed or unchanged, right? But those resiliency factors can be like, you know, having a close family network, right? Often that's outside your control too, right? So these resiliency factors are not necessarily something that you can are within your realm of control, and it might be something that you just have the privilege of having, you know. But like having a close family network can be a resiliency factor. Yeah, it's very, very plausible. There is something called acute stress disorder, which is like a precursor to PTSD. An acute stress disorder is usually something within a month had happened, some sort of traumatic event within the month, and people are starting to develop like symptoms of PTSD. And more often than not, people who are diagnosed with acute stress disorder don't end up developing PTSD, but it's not unreasonable or uncommon for you to experience a traumatic event and like have nightmares about it for like a month or a few weeks to a month, right? That's not uncommon. That's pretty natural actually. But those resiliency factors help kick in and help prevent maybe prolonged PTSD. Maybe you have a lot of good social network that can help you talk through the experience. Some people don't have that, right? I think about the military and how often you go through something and people just like don't talk about it, right? Like just never discuss it. That in and of itself, Dark Messiah brings up, I've been very emotionally strong and independent. And I think at this point, mostly cut out most emotions like fear and pain. That, I don't want to get into the realm of diagnosing here on screen, like on a stream, but like there is research to support or to talk about like emotional numbing too. It is very natural to feel feelings like fear and pain. If you're not feeling any of those things, that might be a concern too. So I would recommend that you maybe talk to somebody about it. If it's something that kind of reoccurs, I don't know if you're still a volunteer firefighter, but if you're still thinking about it all the time, and you can't seem to get things like that out of your mind, it might be worth talking to somebody and getting screened for PTSD. See if it's a factor. Yeah. And PTSD doesn't necessarily have to present now. There's a lot of like factors that might play a role that could be helpful now and not helpful later in life, right? So like one of the things the military does, right? I'm sure you've both, Sin and Pasan have both said this, embrace the suck, right? Actually comes from acceptance and commitment therapy, right? So like that is a protective factor. But like, when you finally get out of the military and they're like, well, I don't have to embrace the suck anymore, and holy crap, it was really sucky. Now I start developing it because now I'm like able to rationalize and process because I'm no longer in the experience, right? So it's very common for people like while they're in maybe not to develop PTSD, and then when they get out and realize all the stuff that they actually went through, being like, holy crap, they develop PTSD later in life. So that can happen as well. Yeah. So let's play one more round and then we'll wrap up. How's that sound?
Sounds
That's good to me.
Awesome. Do you want to do arena still, or do you want to try something else?
Arena, I think still arena, but let's try harder difficulty.
Okay, we'll do medium.
Let's go.
Because I think you unlock the different game modes when you get certain player levels, and I'm not sure which ones have unlocked.
Also, I love this like skin that I have on my screen. It's a danger noodle.
Oh, yep, for Kukulkan.
Yeah, I think that is hilarious. It's like a pool noodle with wigs. It's awesome.
Yeah, they do interesting skins.
Right?
They don't hold anything back. They do, like they've done with Stranger Things. They've done previous collaborations. Like there's a bunch of Avatar: The Last Airbender skins.
Oh, there's that one.
Stop lying.
I'm not. There's a Korra. There's a Zuko. There's an Aang.
Is there an Uncle Iroh, and how do I get it?
Strangely, no. He would be a great Bacchus, but there isn't.
My main. That would make him my main immediately.
Yeah. Who's it? Merlin is Aang. Scotty is Korra. I forget who has the Zuko skin.
Sin's gonna find a new game to spend some money on.
Yeah. The worst part is I don't even think they're actually available right now.
Oh yeah, I was looking at.
There's a lot that aren't up right now.
Vulcan.
Sasano is Zuko.
What role is Vulcan?
He
Vulcan's
is
a mage.
mage.
Okay. What's
Oh, shoot,
Ukulakan?
A mage with a
Kukulkan?
giant hammer.
I know, right? That's my. I thought that was awesome.
He summons a bunch of turrets. He's like Heimerdinger.
Oh, he's
Okay.
my
Ah.
favorite LOL character. He's by far my favorite. I have no idea why. Like, I don't know. I love turrets. Like, I'm also playing Outriders, and I also have that role. I think it's called Necromancer. I place turrets, and even when I play like Mass Effect, I do the turret ability all the time.
Nice.
Oh, let me lock this in.
Vulcan is someone to look at in the future for you then. What did I want to play? I'll just stay Cthulhu.
I'm trying my hand at Assassin.
Good luck.
Cthulhu.
I ran jungle a couple times. Oh, it's an
You know,
ADC main.
They should have the flying spaghetti monster on here.
Who knows? They might.
Isn't Danger
Eventually.
Noodle? Danger Noodle?
Yeah, that's Danger Noodle Kukulkan.
Really?
Kukulkan's probably one of the best gods in the game for his area damage. So yeah, usually at the beginning of the game we start off on the left side with these camps.
Okay.
And then like we get the mana camp, the damage camp, and attack speed camp to people.
This is the mana camp.
It says the name above the gate. Careful about spending all your mana. You can hold Alt to bring up your cursor, and you can mouse over your abilities to read them.
You can also hit K.
Oh yeah, that works too.
Can I grab this damage camp?
Go for it.
Oh, they are harder. Ow.
So you were one to be
unprepared.
fine with.
Yeah, turn on my.
I got one. Got two.
Good job.
There we go. 2 for 1.
All right. Let's try that.
Oh, that's a bad fight. That's a bad fight. Help me. Help me, Danger Noodle.
There we go.
Careful, Chalk, you're low too.
Yeah. Teleport back to base.
Punk duck.
I found that kill.
Back off to Phoenix.
I'm going. Run, 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 run.
Yep. I reared him behind you.
How does buying work in it? Do I just click the things?
How does what?
I'm just trying to figure out how to buy stuff.
Oh, double click it, yeah.
Okay. Should I be looking at core or 2 line?
Yeah, get your core stuff, the core 2. Core is usually what you start with.
Why did I turn into a pig?
It's probably someone else's ability. Or the enemies.
It looks like things auto-upgrade it for me. I have no clue what's happening.
It will not auto-upgrade for you. You have to buy the upper level of the item yourself.
Okay.
When you're back later.
Holy, you're huge.
Oh, sure was.
I think I stood next to something I should not have been standing next to. Anyway. Double kill.
Oh, shoot.
Run, Chalk. You're not running the right direction.
Oh, no, I was trying to teleport back. Okay, let me stop whacking my axe around. And
Yeah, you
we
move
go.
slower when you attack. Alright, I got him off you.
Is there a limit to the number of times you can teleport back?
Shouldn't be, no, but it is a channel, and if you get hit, it'll drop it.
Oh, okay, there it is. That's why. Okay. Got it.
What's G do?
Crud. That was greedy.
Whoa.
That was bad. That was a mistake. Are we against players or are we against bots?
Bots.
Okay.
I just upped the difficulty.
Okay. I mean, I'm gullible enough to see like not bot mates in here and be like, oh, playing against people.
Right?
Their name, I think each of the developers got to name one of the bots.
Oh, nice.
Because I actually knew, I watched a streamer that used to work at Smite. And I think his bot is in here, Drybot, because he now goes by Dry Bear.
That's awesome.
An enemy has been slain. Double kill. Divine. Double kill. Triple kill.
Oh, no, leave me alone.
Ah,
Double kill.
I finally died. Oh, congratulations on finishing your paper.
Yeah, congrats.
That is amazing. Congratulations, Unicorn.
What was it on?
Rampage.
Congrats to you too, Poison, for not dying this game.
Yeah. Woo! I feel like the learning curve is not as steep as the other MOBAs we've played.
Good.
Oh shit, what's this? There we go.
Well, I'm glad I could be helpful. Highly sensitive unicorn. Well, yeah, that's it for today. Any last minute thoughts?
No, I think we covered most
Yeah.
everything.
Okay. So next week there will be one or two things, right? So either we will have a special guest, hopefully, and I'll let people know earlier than Monday if that's going to happen, and we'll hype it up a little bit. Or we'll go on to talking about treatment options for PTSD. What are the various ones, the most popular? What do they kind of look like? How are they done? What would you expect if that was some of the treatment options? So, yeah, Argy was the star of the show.
He's just been asleep here the whole time. This is all he does.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Argy is amazing.
I also want to share that I just started playing Final Fantasy 14 and I like it. Right? Final Fantasy 14 online.
Yeah.
It is good, and it's if you were like me and you played World of Warcraft and you don't want to support Blizzard with your money anymore for their treatment of women employees and other things, I would encourage you to check it out. They got a free trial.
Yeah, so hopefully we can get a little Gamers for Peace clan, or they're not called clans in that.
I think they're still guilds. I'm not sure. I haven't played too much lately.
I believe they are guilds.
Yeah.
And we can have a guild house, everybody. We get to have
Woo!
you can build guild houses.
What server do we want to do it on, just in case? Maybe we should decide that right now while we got people.
I was on. It starts with an S.
I joined Excalibur.
Yes.
Oh wow! I'm pretty sure you'll make a character on there. I joined Sargatanis because I have other friends that play. But so long as you're on the Aether data server, we can play together.
Yep.
So you can,
okay, cool.
You can actually go to the Aether hubs and visit other servers.
Oh, that's right. And I can join your guild even though you're on a different server.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Actually, that one I don't know about.
I have no particular loyalty to Excalibur. Someone just said it was a cool server, so I was like, I'll roll with it.
Did you start a new character, Phoenix?
Yes.
I may have dabbled a little bit in Final Fantasy 14. But it's been a while. And so like fresh start character might be nice to kind of refamiliarize and
well, I am not.
You can always start with a new class.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just switch your class. Because to be honest, you don't want to go through the Realm Reborn story again.
Didn't they well, I
they
haven't even completely finished. I haven't even completely finished it.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, maybe you do want to do a new character then. Don't let me tell you to live your life.
See. Oh no, I did finish a Realm Reborn. What's the one?
Heaven's Ward is the first DLC.
Something.
I think I'm in Heaven's Ward.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure I'm in Heaven's Ward.
Anyway. Heaven's Ward is one of my favorite DLCs ever.
Mm-hmm. Everybody has said that, and I've been wanting to play through the rest of that storyline. So, heard it here first.
Right?
Off the presses. Gamers for Peace entering the MMO fray.
Yeah, ding, ding, ding. Let's do it.
Yeah, anytime people want to play Smite or Final Fantasy 14, join the Discord, hit us up. Happy to play.
Don't forget about Knockout City.
Yes.
Rocket League. Yeah, like we got some good games.
Which I might stay on and play a little bit of either Final Fantasy or Knockout City. I'm up for either.
I'm gonna eat first, and then I'll probably try Final Fantasy 14 if anyone wants to join.
Nice.
Need to eat though.
Yeah, definitely. Don't miss out on that.
Check us out tomorrow for Rocket League. They're discussing the Star Wars cartoon Bad Batch, right?
Yep.
I just finished episode 12. I think that's the last one. It's honestly a phenomenal show. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. But I can't remember what episodes they're discussing, but check them out. They always have thoughtful discussions about some pop culture movies, and Star Wars: The Bad Batch is a good one to talk about. You know, you have a group of rebel soldiers that are learning how oppressive their their former kind of employers were. So it's very characteristic. I think it fits the mold that we're kind of creating. Wrecker is so cool. He's charming, and just like episodes 7 through 11, awesome.
I haven't watched any of them yet, other than like 1 and 2, and so I'm binging tonight, possibly after some knockouts. Happened.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us tonight. Check us out next week for another Mental Health Monday. And I think we'll keep playing Smite for a little bit unless we come across something a little bit more entertaining. I did want to try Paladins. I don't know if anybody's been interested in that. It's actually the same developer, but it might be worth checking out.
Isn't that I think it's a first person kind of like Overwatch MOBA kind of thing.
Yeah. It kind of like a mix between a MOBA and Overwatch. So could be good. But definitely something along those lines next week. We're also doing community game night this Thursday.
Yes.
Awesome. And we have the military ad slam on Friday. Got a little something for everybody every night of the week. Check us out and join our Discord.
A little extra bonus is the ad slam this Friday. Pacifist War Vet is taking the charge on planning that one. We're going to be going over G.I. Joe.
Oh, classic. Actually, the new G.I. Joe movie too, right?
I'm not sure about the new movie. I'll leave that up to them. I just know the topic's G.I. Joe.
Nice.
That's going to be amazing.
All right.
Knowing is half the battle.
Right, for real. Like, you got to know when you're being brainwashed.
Yep. Exactly. All right. Peace.
All right. Peace, everyone.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Peace and love, everyone.